5, 2017 is now called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk, please take roll.
Councilmember Cooper?
Here.
Councilmember Beaton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jaworski?
Here.
Councilmember Goodspeed?
Here.
Councilmember Whitliff?
Here.
Councilmember Pontiac?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here.
City Manager?
Here.
City Attorney?
Here.
DPW Director?
Here.
Public Safety Director?
Here.
City Engineer?
Here.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I have just something to disclose. I have to accuse myself from the AES discussions. I do contract work with Great Star Collaborative, and they are, AES is a middleman on where I get paid. So I don't know if that's gonna be the ISD, they bill ISD for my wages and they contract with them. So I'm not directly employed with them, but I am in connection with them.
I could add to that, that I've looked at this issue. I actually do not see any type of conflict of interest. I've reviewed the charter, council policy, and state statute, and I did not see a conflict with Councilperson Pontiac continuing and even voting on most of those issues unless they directly related to the particular employment of yours. For you to be excused from voting on any issue regarding AES would require a vote of council to support that. That's our council policy. But at this point, I do not see any conflict of interest that would certainly prevent you from serving as a council person, but also even discussing the matters regarding AES that I think are on the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
So there's no conflict in your opinion?
That's
Mr.
correct,
Sarah?
Mayor.
Okay, I think, I'll call for a vote on that to make sure all the council members are in agreement with that. The city clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Is the vote, are you asking for a vote on whether she, are you
Whether,
asking to be
whether,
excused?
whether
from-
there's a conflict and she can participate in the discussion and vote?
If Councilperson Pontiac's asking to be excused, and then you can have a vote on her request to be excused.
Okay.
Is that what you
Yeah,
were?
that's fine.
I'm confused.
Boy, so am I.
The council policy provides that if a council person has a direct financial interest in a matter that comes before council, the council person can ask to be excused from voting. Otherwise, on every issue that comes before council, it's mandatory that every council person cast a vote.
Right.
So in that instance, Councilperson Pontiac could say that I feel that I've got a conflict that I'd like to be excused from participating in voting on an issue regarding AES. And if she makes that request, it does require the rest of council to unanimously support that request.
So my no vote would be that she could vote.
That she should vote,
Okay.
yes.
You're asking to be reclused.
Yes.
Can we take a vote on her request to be reclused, please?
Councilmember Cooper?
No.
Councilmember Beaton?
No.
Councilmember Whitliff?
No.
Councilmember Goodspeed?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski?
No.
Mayor Smith?
No.
She's fine, she's fine.
Councilmember Pontiac?
She would vote on
She
it.
would vote
Thank you.
on. Motion denied.
Public hearings, we have none. Citizen comments on agenda-related items. Citizens may come forward, state their name and address, and make comment on items listed on the agenda if they so please. We'll limit the comments to 5 minutes. Are there any citizens that wish to make comment on agenda-related items tonight?
Hello, good evening, council members. Tyler Leppinen, DDA Director. I wanted to thank you for taking up the DDA Board's request to reconsider allowing dogs on the Riverwalk. The Chamber did a great community service with the Imagine Manistee event that gathered input from the community as to what they would want to see downtown look like. In the recreation category, allowing dogs on the Riverwalk ranked 5th out of 13 categories from over 100 people. Additionally, I surveyed business owners downtown, and it appears a majority of the business owners would like to allow dogs on the Riverwalk, although I would add that it was somewhat split, probably 60 to 40. One of the DDA's top priorities is to increase the amount of people using one of this community's greatest assets, the Riverwalk. In order to do so, the board feels that we must remove restrictions that discourage people from using the Riverwalk. People travel with their pets, people do activities with their pets. It's the DDA's position that allowing dogs on the Riverwalk would encourage use. And this is supported by the Visitors Bureau letter of support that shows some people are avoiding Manistee because of the attitude towards dogs. Meanwhile, Ludington not only allows dogs, they advertise the city as being pet friendly. Dogs are already also allowed to be on the portion of the Riverwalk near the city marina, assuming this is so boaters with dogs are not discouraged from visiting Manistee. So this should also apply to visitors and residents who travel by any other means. It also adds to confusion as to where dogs are and are not allowed. There are some issues that council has raised in the past, such as cleaning up after the dogs and safety. To the first issue, the DDA would secure sponsors for dog bag stations to encourage owners to clean up. Would every owner clean up after their pet? Most likely not, but the owners that do not clean up are most likely the people that are not going to obey a no dog on the Riverwalk sign. So it seems the current policy is only discouraging rule following or law obeying people. As to the safety concern, the Riverwalk within the DDA district is 9 feet wide, which is as wide as the sidewalks on River Street, and according to city sidewalk policy, only requires 5 feet of clearance from obstruction, making some places on River Street narrower than anywhere on the Riverwalk within the DDA district. Unfortunately, I was not able to gather data as to how many dog attacks or dog bites occur on River Street or at the marina, but it seems that if dogs are allowed on River Street where there are more people walking, and on one side you have a building and on the other side there's traffic, that it's not any safer than the Riverwalk. Some people may be uncomfortable around dogs, but that's an issue that would probably affect them in most public places. Also, if the council sees fit to allow dogs on only the DDA portion, there are 4 access points to the Riverwalk on the west end, which is the narrow portion, compared to 10 access points within the DDA. This would make it much easier to post signs and enforce the ban on dogs on the narrow portion of the west side of the Riverwalk. Or perhaps council decides that they want to make the entire Riverwalk dog friendly, and that's up to you. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other citizens that wish to make comment on agenda items?
Good evening, Stacy Beitwerk, President of the Manistee Area Chamber of Commerce. I just want to echo what Tyler said. The Manistee Area Chamber is in support of that. There is a petition that was circulated by a resident that gathered 115 signatures in favor of dogs on the Riverwalk, so I wanted to put that out, that we do have that, if that could be filed on record. And then also we did do a letter of support because we feel that that's going to bring more of an economic impact to our community, to be more welcoming to people, visitors and residents that have pets that want to come downtown, to bring a vibrant downtown. And then echoing what Tyler said in regards to the Imagine Manistee event that the leadership program did, rated number 5. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Nancy Day, 325 Lighthouse Way in Manistee, and this is Julie Raymond at 2547
2546 Red Apple Road.
Red Apple Road. And we feel like we're among our friends. We're coming to you for the 10th time, and we feel like having old friends that you know what our message is, and that is for early detection and also regular breast screenings with your physicians or healthcare provider. It has been a marvelous, well-supported community event over these last 10 years, and we've created marvelous memories. as a result of supporting these women who are going through the journey of trying to survive breast cancer. Also, the message is very clear. We want early detection. That's the important thing. Our event this year is going to be wonderful. We have partnered with the Vogue Theater, and we feel it's going to be a win-win. We are going to be starting at the Vogue Theater, and we will do the traditional 4 o'clock gathering time on Thursday, October 5th, as well as a 4:45 ceremony to honor and remember those who are the loved ones and the reasons why we're coming out for the walk. At 5 o'clock, we'll begin the ribbon walk. And just as a clarification to the minutes, or to what is presented for the agenda, we are going to do the walk starting at the Vogue Theater, continuing west toward the fountain this year, going across, coming all the way to House of Flavors, and then crossing over the street and ending up at the Vogue Theater once again. And so it's exciting in the fact that it's 10 years, and so just like we all have scrapbooks and thumb drives of wonderful pictures and memories, we're going to be we're bringing that to the screen at the Vogue Theater as a pink retrospective, capturing all the pictures that have been through the past 10 years of our walks. And Brian Vane and the Manistee High School production staff are creating the video for us, and we are very excited about that. In addition, we're opening up our memory book, and we are going to be having not only the video that includes the pictures, but also we are demonstrating with interviews from the radiologists at the hospital who are going to talk about the various pieces of equipment that have either been defrayed expense or purchased outright through the Gifts from the Heart from Paint the Town Pink. In addition, we will be talking the mammographer will be talking about breast health screenings, so it will be up there for everyone to envision, as well as there will be a testimony for one of our survivors, all on the film. So we're very excited about it. We also don't want to forget that there are commemorative bows that are going to be placed on the lampposts, not only all the way down River Street, but also on Washington Street and Division Street as well, bearing the tag of someone who is in memory or in honor of an individual. We have before us right now the flyers along with the order forms that are due in by September 20th. We intend also, for clarification, to put these bows up on the lamppost from September 23rd and taking them down on October 14th. And so we ask that you partner with us once again on our 10th year, a celebration of, for many people, it's a chance of survival, and they are celebrating that surviving element. For us, it's become a real community event. We're very proud to represent not only our local hospital, where all of our funds and Gifts from the Heart remain, but also to partner with Munson Healthcare, who is very on board with this project for our community. So we say thank you once again, and may we present to you the flyers as we've done in the years past. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, dear.
You just need some grippies.
I know.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks.
Are there any other citizen comments?
Hello. My name's Patrick McDuff. I live at 260.5 First Street. I'm a 2-year resident of Manistee, and hopefully this will be the last stop in my journey. I would like to express my opinion in opposition to allowing dogs on the Riverwalk. As it currently stands, dogs are allowed just about everywhere in the city. I've seen them in the stores, I've seen them in the library, the post office, at the farmer's market, on every sidewalk I've walked on, and there are very few places, including the Riverwalk, that currently do not allow them to be there, theoretically. I can understand the desire to bring more people into town, but as it stands, dogs are already allowed on River Street where the businesses are located, and I don't see necessarily the benefit of allowing them on the Riverwalk to increase business traffic. I've encountered a number of situations in town where dogs have behaved improperly and the owners have behaved improperly. And this includes dog fights dog encounters. I was down at the sidewalk sale and saw a dog that was standing above knee high, and a little child went up to pet it, and the dog growled, and the man leashed it in, and he told the child, "You should ask before you pet my dog," which was fortunate that nothing happened. Dog waste is everywhere. I have photographs, if I may present them, that were taken within the last 10 days on the Riverwalk, Kansas City sidewalks, where there's dog feces lying, and it's been there for that long, and every sample of that still remains to this day. To my knowledge, there's nobody that goes around and picks up after these animals. You can provide the bags for them, but that is not a guarantee that they'll be used responsibly. I had an instance where I lived in Saugatuck, Michigan. They opened up the state park at the dunes down there to dogs after, a great time where they didn't have it, and the trails were littered with dog bags filled with dog feces. People would pick up and not throw away. The beaches were crowded with dogs after that. As far as the DDA's a proposal of allowing the distance between 31 and Spruce Street, I think that's a mistake. That's almost half of the Riverwalk, and I can understand allowing dogs from Spruce Street to Washington where the marina is. People come in on their boats, they have their pets. They have to take care of that, business, but they have easy access to all the city's sidewalks, which is where dogs are currently allowed. I guess that's about it. I think we should work harder to keep the river cleaner, not dirtier. By allowing more people with their pets down there, we are just defeating that purpose. And if you'd like to see my photos, I can present them to you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
See the flies on that there, right? That's right next to the bench. And all those are still there, as I say, and they'll be there until nature takes care of them.
My name is Shirley Baker, 298 Lakeshore Drive, and I disagree. I was not planning on speaking tonight. I just wanted to come here and see our new city council that I haven't been here in a few years, so here I am. But my husband and I were at the Sleeping Bear Dunes Visitor Center last week, picked up a brochure, and sure enough on the back, Pets in the Park. Our national park allows dogs in the park, in a national park. And we in Manistee cannot allow dogs on the Riverwalk? Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Are there any other citizen comments?
My name is Rick Jensen. I live at 1395 Princeton Road, and I am not in favor of dogs on the Riverwalk. I walk regularly from the water tower down to the beach and north on the beach almost daily, and every day, as of yesterday's photos, 9 instances of unattended dog feces, either on the walkway or next to the walkway, on the walkway, or on the beach in that immediate area. And I do not believe that we should allow them on the Riverwalk. It's just going to add and make the Riverwalk pet-friendly, but not people-friendly. Regarding Mrs. Baker's comments on the national parks, I have been to several national parks out west, and they do not allow dogs in those national parks on any of the trails. And if you'd like to see my photos, I will present those to you also.
Are there any further citizen comments?
Tom Swedenborg. I live at 562 First Street, and I've been in the city for about 20 years, and I tremble to disagree with Shirley, but thank you for hearing me out, council members. I plead with you to not allow dogs on the Riverwalk. It's my opinion that there are plenty of places all over this beautiful city where dogs are free to walk. And we presently have this area that dogs can't walk. I disagree with an earlier statement. I just walked the Riverwalk before coming here, and between Spruce and 31, there are pinch points in areas that get down to 4 foot. It would be 4.5 if the city would trim their bushes. However, that being as it is, and as I say, I already see dog droppings down there. I have the privilege of overlooking from my home the Riverwalk, and I have seen any number of incidents of people being pinned against the railing by angry, threatening dogs. I'm personally aware of dog bitings on the Riverwalk. And I'm here to say you never know. It's an animal. I had a wonderful, friendly, lovable Airedale for many, many years, never hurt a soul. And one day I came out of my house to see it pin my beloved mailman into a corner. He has since retired. We don't direct comments at any people sitting on that bench. I'm sure you will ask a legal opinion of opening an area presently forbidden to dogs. And there's probably no increased liability. But I'm here to tell you, if I was an attorney, I could make a hell of a emotional plea to a juror to say, you have a liability if you start allowing dogs somewhere where they previously weren't allowed. You never know what's going to happen. I was keeping my own dog, not my dog, my son's dog, while he was deployed to Afghanistan. And I know he was poorly controlled, poorly trained, could be vicious dog. And I would never walk him on the Riverwalk. One of my son's girlfriends came, she's 85 pounds. She took this powerful dog down on the Riverwalk and it attacked and bit somebody. I would never allow that. I was cited, I paid the fine. I think I've said what I came to say. Thanks for hearing me out.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other citizen comments on agenda-related items? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. All agenda items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, cash balances, revenue and expenses, notification regarding the next work session, consideration of Northern Michigan Recovery Residence's 3rd annual Run for Recovery event, consideration of Manistee High School Homecoming Parade, consideration of the annual Paint the Town Pink event, and consideration of the annual Hops and Props events. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion to.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Goodspeed, second by Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Is there any discussion? Please take roll.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff?
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. New business. Item A, consideration of request to allow dogs on the Riverwalk. Letters have been received from the Manistee Downtown Development Authority, the Manistee Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Manistee County Visitors Bureau requesting that council reconsider their ban on allowing dogs on the Riverwalk and make the community more pet-friendly. The DDA notes that when polling the downtown merchants, there was a 60-40 split in favor of allowing dogs on the Riverwalk. They have also offered to reach out for sponsors of dog back stations at each entrance to the Riverwalk. The Chamber's Imagine Manistee event ranked allowing dogs on the Riverwalk as number 5 in the recreation category. The Chamber notes, we as a community need to move forward and expand our efforts to create opportunities and bring more people to the area to have greater economic impact, and ask the council to consider making the Riverwalk in the community more pet-friendly. The Visitor Bureau reports that some visitors report avoiding Manistee because we are not pet-friendly. At this time, council could take action on their stance regarding dogs on the Riverwalk. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Have a second?
Is this for allowing dogs on the Riverwalk or for not allowing this?
Just to-
Take action on their stance to allow.
Oh,
The
okay.
request is to allow.
I'll give it a second for discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't hear the motion.
I have a motion from Councilmember Cooper.
What was the motion, though?
Consideration of the request to allow dogs on the Riverwalk.
Stance regarding.
You want to allow?
No.
Motion,
The motion was.
motion to allow.
That's not what this says, though.
Just says on their stance. What is that?
Yeah,
Could say take
I ain't
action.
making a motion.
I mean,
to
what
allow.
are we gonna do with that, Mr. Saylor?
Well, I think there's some confusion over what the motion was, and if maybe Councilmember Cooper could restate.
I'm not making a motion to allow dogs on the Riverwalk.
Just read your motion off.
Well, he said, make a motion. I thought it was just to discuss this right now.
For
Consideration.
council to take action on a
Yeah,
stance?
that's what it was. For the council to take action and discuss this right now.
I don't think you require a motion to do that.
Okay.
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 Does not require a motion?
Someone can make a motion, but I don't think you need to make a motion to say council would like to discuss a particular issue.
To discuss it?
So would there be a yes or no vote on this then?
After a motion is made. I mean, if you just want to discuss it, you can discuss it, and at some point, someone on council would have to make a motion, and then there would be a vote.
So for the discussion to end, you don't have to do a motion, you could just say, okay, moving on?
Yeah, that's my understanding. You can just
Okay.
discuss.
But a motion was made and seconded.
I think there was confusion over what the motion was.
Well, the wording.
So he
was-
needs to rescind his motion then.
Rescind?
I'll rescind it.
Okay. So discussion would be open on council
It's
stance?
a little atypical for Robert's Rules of Order that usually would have a motion made and supported and then discussion, but I think that, Mayor, if you decide that you'd like to open this up for discussion,
Okay.
I think you're certainly well within your ability to do that.
Okay. The matter is open for discussion.
I guess, right off the bat, would the city be liable for any type of animal issues? Bites, scratches, anything like that, a dog? And are we just talking dogs, cats, ferrets? What are we talking about?
Guinea pigs.
You know, so.
I do not see city liability for a dog biting someone, even on city property. Certainly, I would add to that governmental immunity would offer the city a considerable protection along those lines. Doesn't mean that someone with a sheet of paper and $150 can't file a lawsuit, because they can. But I don't see the liability for the city under those circumstances.
Okay.
What about the areas that have, there's some places on the Riverwalk that have a drop-off, like there's no fence, that's what I'm concerned about there. If there were to have, I mean, that's for anything, I think, kids can fall in or whatever, but if a dog got too close to someone, they can fall into the water. That's what I'm a little concerned about.
When I originally brought the issue forward and requested that it be put on a work session agenda, my concerns were, one, that I was seeing a lot of dogs on the Riverwalk, and and some dog waste. And citizens had contacted me regarding that, not necessarily being in favor or against, but to start the discussion. I mean, at the entry points, we've got signage that says it's pedestrian traffic only, and pets are not allowed. Yet you see bicycles, skateboards, dogs, in other traffic on the Riverwalk. I know Friday, I was standing on the Elks deck watching the Great Republic come by and witnessed, as has been pointed out, confrontation between dogs and people scattering in different directions because of concern that one of them would break loose from the owner because they were large dogs. And you know, and I see the potential for that. Since the issue has come to light, I've been contacted by a number of residents who, like others that have stated here, that use the Riverwalk on a daily basis and have stated their opposition to opening the Riverwalk up. And they point out we've got beach areas that allow dogs. We have areas that don't allow dogs, but there are few places in the city of Manistee that is not, as they would refer to as dog friendly. I think the city's not labeled as not being dog friendly because there are restrictions in certain areas where it's more confining, and people use it in more of a recreational sense. Walking up and down River Street and shopping is one thing, but people recreating on a Riverwalk is an entirely different situation. I'm in favor of maintaining the policy that we have at this time. And when we had the council discussion, that the majority of the council members reflected the same opinion. When the issue came up with the DDA, I voted in opposition to support the council majority from the work session. And I'm going to maintain that position.
I spent some time on the Riverwalk interacting with people and talking with people over the weekend who, I asked them two questions. One, do you want dogs on the Riverwalk? And second, do you own a dog? Most people own a dog and didn't want them on the Riverwalk, wouldn't bring them on the Riverwalk. Some of them like people, but don't like other dogs. Majority of the people that I talk to, and the majority of the people that I've talked to in my district, either don't care or don't want dogs on the Riverwalk. They want one place they can go where they don't have dogs.
I would like to add some comments. I started visiting Manistee in 1987 and spent a lot of summers vacation time up here and as many weekends as possible. And we always brought our dog. And one of the things that we enjoyed doing was fishing off the Fifth Avenue Pier by the Coast Guard station until one day we arrived with our Cocker Spaniel and 3 kids and noticed there was a sign posted that said no dogs allowed. So we were rather surprised about that, but we did find a place to house the dog for a few hours so we could go fishing out on the pier. And I really think that, I don't think disallowing dogs on the pier has hurt the activity on the pier as people walking out there and enjoying it. So, and that's a much wider space than the majority of the Riverwalk. So I'm more inclined to not allow the dogs on the Riverwalk. There's plenty of other places to walk the dogs. It's my opinion. And everybody got over the fact that the dogs weren't allowed on the pier. So.
Any further comment?
I don't think that allowing dogs on the Riverwalk is gonna make a difference with how Manistee goes. It's not gonna close. By allowing them, it's not gonna make Manistee any bigger, and by not allowing them, it's not gonna have no effect either.
Mr. Saylor, can we move on to the next item?
There's no motion to be made.
Motion to be made. Thank you, sir. Item B, discussion with the Alliance for Economic Success. Representatives from the Alliance for Economic Success will be in attendance this evening to make a presentation to the City Council about the organization plans moving forward and continued interest in providing economic development services to the city.
Try to save some paper and not print everything. Eric Gusted, 1923 Blossom Trail, Manistee. I'm the vice chair of the board of AES, and I'm here with Kelly Smith. You can introduce yourself.
I'm from Cadillac. I'm the board chair, and I am president at Baker College in Cadillac.
So first of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Smith and Council for giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I want to start off by fully acknowledging that we've heard many concerns about AES, how it's operated of late. We know there's some structural issues. We know there are some reporting issues. We know there's some accountability issues. And we also know there's some transparency issues with how AES has been operating. We also know that we know that as a result of an internal evaluation is what we've heard from you, the county, and many organizations we've been working with. But with that being said, we also know that AES has done a lot of great work for the community and continues to do that. We just need to work out some of the details. But I don't have a formal presentation or want to give you another 10 or 15 page document to go through. But what I'd like to do is just give it a high level overview of what we'd like to accomplish with your support moving forward. So a high level view of what we'd like to do is hire an executive director. We've heard more and more about having a point person, having a face of AES, having somebody to go to with regards to a developer, a point person for all economic development related activities, financial project responsibilities, reporting. We need that point person to be part of that collaboration. We also want to restructure the business of the business for more accountability. And you probably know what I'm getting at is there are a lot of the contributions, the main contributions coming from the county and the city is where's that money being spent? How's it being spent? What benefit is that drawing from that? And so we're really trying to look at restructuring the business of the business. And that will be included in fee for services for non-core projects or other services that AES might provide. Maybe some grant administration fees to increase revenue streams there. Also build an annual capital campaign and align ourselves with the Manufacturer Association, big businesses, and the IDC, all of which would aid in an efforts to diversify funding. And that's one of our main objectives is really to diversify funding so we're not so heavily reliant on the city and the county for our stability and our long-term sustainability. We feel that model has a lot more opportunity to be successful moving forward. Next thing we want to do is obviously create an enhanced communication strategy to promote the transparency and inclusion for all the stakeholders. You guys know as well as AES that there's been a lot of that not knowing what's going on, and we want to resolve a lot of that. So we want to increase that communication strategy so it's meeting the needs of all of our stakeholders, not only the county, the city, but any additional stakeholders we built along the way. One of the other key objectives we want to do moving forward is improve and promote collaboration with other organizations within the community. And that's not only the city and the county, but what are we doing to effectively collaborate with the DDA, the chamber, the manufacturing council, the CVB, the IDC? What are we doing to engage and not have overlap of areas or not have gaps in areas? And currently that's not being done very effectively. And we know that's a problem for us moving forward. So we want to improve in that area as well. One of the other pieces that we think is critical is revisit the board structure moving forward. Per section 12 of the contract with the city and the council and the county commissioners, each body is afforded a seat on the board, and we encourage that to happen. That contract was signed by, at the time, Mayor Pro Tem Smith, and we want to encourage involvement and a seat to be held by one of the council members, so they have a more, again, transparent and line of sight of what's going on within the AES. And then once all those pieces are in place, we'd want to work collaboratively with all those key stakeholders to build short and long-term development plans with clear measurables, clear deliverables, and where our dollars are being spent and how they're being spent, and to meet those needs of the community. But at the end, we can't do any of those things without some support moving forward. And that's what we're here to ask tonight. We're asking for your support to move forward. But again, we can't do that without that support. We'd also like to answer any questions you may have about AES and the operations, or things we can do to secure some partnerships moving forward.
I also want to note that we did include several documents in your packet, just some updates of, we had some meetings, Councilman Beaton and Zielinski were there, able to provide some opportunity to have some dialogue about your concerns and our answers to some of those concerns. Eric and I obviously have real jobs. These are volunteer positions, and we've immersed ourselves to try to, because we believe in the work that AES has done. I think there's a lot of great things that are happening in the city of Manistee and in the county. And what's good for the city is good for the county. What's good for the county is good for our region. And if we work together, we're stronger than if we're not working everybody together. Certainly in grants and going after monies that help us become attracting the workforce we want, the businesses that we want to our region.
With that, again, we take any questions that you may have about this.
I have a question. In your documentation, and you did have a lot of documentation, which is great, you were looking for an executive director, and that was in August. So where do you stand on that?
Thank you for asking that. We have received 6 applications. We've followed up with those 6 applicants with a kind of a questionnaire to kind of narrow down a little bit further. And currently 4 of them have kind of made that grade, and we're still accepting applications up until interview and offer. So
Yeah, actually, we have 2 that I'd like to bring forward.
Yeah.
We have a couple folks on the board that are joining me for that interview. One from the county, one from Filer Township, and they received those today to look at. So 2 for sure next Monday will come in to interview. But it's, again, like I said to you in the meeting that we had in August, the end of August, you know, it's hard to move forward and offer somebody a position if you're not sure what your funding is going to be. But we are moving forward and hoping for the best because we believe in the work that's being done.
You've done a great job. The AES is moving Manistee forward. I'd hate to see the anchor drop and stop all the forward momentum here that the AES has done. So
Thank you.
You have my support.
Thank you. We believe that too. And that's why we've invested a lot of personal time trying to make sure that this boat gets set on the right sail and that we can meet the concerns that both you and the county have.
And the truth be told, we wouldn't be standing before you if we didn't feel there was some opportunity to improve, and there really is. And we know that that can't happen in a silo over on 395 3rd Street. It's got to happen with some collaborations between these agencies that we were talking about, and that's the only way it's going to be able to be successful moving forward. Because this body will change, as it has since I've sat on council, as it has for the last several years, and it'll continue to change. And so we want to make sure those collaborations maintain, because that'll be the kind of legacy of successful economic development moving forward. So.
And you're talking 46,000, whatever, 46,000.
It's 45, I think.
It was 46 something, yeah.
46.5, some 20, 30, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's not that, and the county and the council feels there's a better number, we're open to those discussions. Ultimately, and I'm just going to be frank here, if the county and the city walk away from support, AES is done. There's no more deliberate economic development coming from that body. The contractors have been notified that their future for economic development and services is limited to the funding that we secure through the agencies that we've been asking for. So those resources, along with some of the others that may have not been mentioned from the shore or Lakes to Land, Explore the Shores, Great Start, some of those other programs that we're actively involved in supporting. So it's hard to walk away from some of those great things that we've been doing. But I do know, and I fully acknowledge that there needs to be some improvements moving forward. So again, we can't do that alone. That's how we got where we're at.
Yeah,
After I left council, we did have a lot of gap between you folks and us, and we don't want to have that anymore.
And that was not planned or malicious in any way.
No,
You know?
not at all. So
Yeah, and the other part is that I sat in on a grant meeting last week, and I told them that we needed to stop the work on 2018 grants. Some of those were for the city, some for the county, because we may not be here to administer those. So it's really important that we have a decision sometime in September in order to be able to move forward with an executive director and move forward with the business that's already happening.
and continues to happen.
And
Yeah.
continues to happen, yeah. There's some grants that are on the docket. I think there were 5 of them that we'll know in October. They all look like they're in a good place to be accepted. And so it will be our responsibility to take care of those. But I'm not, as the board chair and Eric as vice chair, we don't want to put ourselves in obligations that go beyond that time period if we don't have the appropriate funding to do so.
And
Because
somebody to manage it.
We have to go back to our real jobs.
Yeah. And somebody to manage that moving
Yeah,
forward, and that's what we're
exactly.
hoping the executive director will help us do.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't you branched out now to like Benzie County and?
Yes,
Is there
Wex-
another area, Wexford?
Yeah, Wexford County, business people there put in 50,000, and Benzie 30. We did contract, obviously that took additional consultants, so we contracted with Beckert and Rader at the tone of $50,000 for those 2 areas and the work that they want to have done. And that was money that came from Wexford. Wexford contributed 50,000, Benzie 30. So none of your monies have been spent in Wexford or Benzie. And I think that that's been a difficult, because we didn't communicate well. And when I say we take responsibility because we're the board chair and vice chair. However, we can't be that voice. We've got to have an executive director that takes the lead on those things, so that everybody in all 3 of those counties know what's going on. I will say to you, somebody who provides education for the entire northern Michigan region, we have to work together, especially in northern Michigan. And going after grants, they go south of us, and so we are stronger if we can do it as a region.
So yeah, and part of the business Councilmember Zielinski, is having more accountability to where our resources are being spent, so we can be more transparent about that. And that's part of our problem that led us to it today, being in front of you today. So
what's the breakdown of board members? How many members do you have from Benzie and Wexford? And
We only have myself. I actually was on the board prior to Wexford coming on. We have 1 representative from Wexford besides myself. I'm not sure what Benzie has.
I think there was 8 identified from Benzie. And then internally we had 8 in Manistee as well. So that board structure needs to be looked at, though. It absolutely does. That's one of the things that we feel is a deficiency. There's an imbalance, and there's not a fair representation of what we want to do moving forward, from our financial responsibilities also to economic development. So
Do you have 17 board members?
something like that, yeah.
In the bylaws.
Trying to find a consensus there.
Yeah, and the bylaws go up to like 20 or 21, and so that's something we need to look at.
And it grew fast, and it grew without
Pardon me?
real.
You'd like to pare it down?
Yeah, our goal
Yeah.
is to pare it down.
With
More manageable.
strategic representation versus, and the offer to Benzie to give them 8 members was really kind of an off-the-cuff number, and that's what they ended up supplying. And then we're like, okay, now we doubled our size, and we don't have the right representation for the amount of financial and obligation for services. So, great question.
Let me talk about finances, if I could. The county throws $90,000 a year in. People live in the city, pay county taxes also, so The perception from a lot of citizens is that we're double tapping the situation here, that the city is paying a premium on top of the county. Then the question is, what premium is the city getting out of the services? We see Fowler Township corridor being addressed. We see Bear Lake corridor being addressed. What is Fowler Township? What is Bear Lake? What is Onekama? What do all these other townships in villages in the county of Manistee contribute to AES? Because they certainly get AES services as part of the county and city package.
Let me address that in two parts. The first part was the initial plan for economic development funding wasn't based on a geographical district within a district. It was, these are the two biggest entities within the county. They take economic development seriously. They take it seriously to the tune of a contribution of 2/3 to 1/3, something in that range, and it grew to where it's at today. It wasn't a subsidiary of the county to be in the city. It didn't have anything to do with those geographic districts. It was more about, hey, we're the biggest players in this county, and we want to take economic development seriously, and we're here to back it up with financial support. Now, the second part of that is those other communities, townships, and villages, they contribute what they can. Not to the level they would get if they were going to outside consultant. For an example, I went to a community over in Wexford County. They had a strategic plan done and a recreation plan done for an outside consultant, and it cost them roughly $16,500. Now, could the village of Onekama afford that? Probably not. So would the village of Onekama still get those services? Sure, if we can afford it and they can afford some type of contribution to it, because it's part of what we think is the rising tide raises all those ships. So if the Portage Point Inn goes successfully and we see another influx of $2 million in investment in that community, and we see people coming up from Chicago and South Haven and look at this community and say, I want to be here. I want to invest here. Those are those rising tides. So we didn't define it by necessarily the county, village, township, and those parameters. We defined it by what could make the whole community successful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Filer does contribute a little less than 20,000. I think your point is well taken. That some of those other communities, especially those that have monies to do so, need to be tapped into. Onekama is a good example at Portage Point Inn. A lot of that's been on the county dime. And so they've already been on notice that, it's time now that they need to put in, because we've certainly far outreached the core services.
And Mayor Smith, you're right on the money with regards to the business of the business. We haven't been managing it well, and all we can do is say, recognize the problem, we've got to fix it moving forward, because there is a certain amount of accountability that needs to happen across the board and be fair and equitable to all of the regions within this county. And that's just not been easy to define. Now, there's been some great things that have gone on, but I can't say equitably we've spent a fair amount, or exactly 90 here or exactly 46 here. It is a challenge that we've had in the past. We recognize it, and I fully agree with you in that respect.
Okay. Back when Mr. Leppinan was hired as the executive director for the DDA, part of the rationale between changing the position from executive director to the economic/executive director was a perceived lack of service from AES, from the DDA board, and focus on downtown. And you talk about the contract that I signed, the current contract that we're under with AES as Mayor Pro Tem. I can tell you on that contract, there were a number of issues. One, we were supposed to have a City of Manistee housing needs assessment done. That has never come to life and been done during.
Actually, Networks Northwest did do a housing study.
City, not county.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Everything is done on a county-wide basis, and everybody tries to apply it to the city. The city's 3.3 square miles of 457 square miles of county area. And I think, everybody tries to shoehorn things into to one spot. But I'm just saying that wasn't accomplished. Sands Park, there was supposed to be grant applications and efforts to refurbish the tennis courts at Sand Park. That has not happened. We were supposed to go for a grant and do a fishing dock at Veterans Memorial Park for our disabled veterans. That has not occurred. I mean, for all the verbiage that we've had before about, well, it's hard to quantify, there are specific elements in that contract that simply have not been completed and won't get completed by the end of December. It's like we got a contract with a list of agenda items and deliverables that have not been delivered. So then the question is, for 3 years, we throw $46,500 in the pot. What service over and above the rest of the county is the city getting for their money?
Well, again, I can't speak to that because it wasn't geared towards county, city underneath, and that there was no hierarchically signed in the beginning, and I wasn't part of those original contracts. But what I will say about the original contract signed 3 years ago was item number 14 and item number 15 in that contract states that on an annual basis, this body as well as the city staff will evaluate that strategic plan and change priorities as see fit. And so as what you see from a strategic plan today has morphed over the last 3 years of changing priorities from the body that sits here today. So some of those things may not have been accomplished from 2015, but some of those priorities also changed from dictation from the council that sits before us today. So it's a moving target sometimes. So I completely agree if there's specific deliverables that we didn't hit, but if those priorities change from the body that was dictating those, it's a challenge to keep up on that level. Now, with all that being said, I won't say we didn't stumble a bit or a lot along the way, but I will say there were some great things that were done that helped Manistee grow and prosper in those last 3 years as well. They just weren't necessarily captured in that plan 3 years ago. So
yeah, we did give a list. We can't speak to that because we're not the boots on the ground people.
Yeah.
I mean, Tamara Keene, and I read her quarterly report since January. It seems like they addressed what I believe she and Thad and Tim possibly sat down and directed as the work for each of the years. And I looked at what was directed for this year. It seems like she addressed that with you 3 different times quarterly on updates, and it seemed very clear to me what had been accomplished. The things that you're mentioning, like Eric, I can't speak to that. I will say that, again, we know that we can get better every day. No matter what we do now, I hope we're always striving to get better the next day. But there's a lot of great activity that's happening here in Manistee area, and AES has had a hand in many of those things, whether it's been a little bit of a hand or a lot of a hand. Those things will go away if we don't get funded.
And your pause and hesitation is well warranted. You're not falling on deaf ears. I know.
And I hope you appreciate it. I'm not here to be confrontational.
Oh, I know.
Or
No,
disrespectful.
this is good, yeah.
I mean, I went back, I got the contract, and we had the meeting over in the Commissioner Chambers, and we were looking at some of the items, and I specifically asked for the contract. Said, what exactly was supposed to be done. Had conversations before about the Vogue Theater. One of the deliverables was to consolidate the financing, and increase the fundraising and grant opportunities for the Vogue Theater. And I have concerns. The Vogue is a very key element to the city of Manistee.
Sure.
They're still burdened with a $500,000 USDA loan.
But the Vogue also wouldn't have happened without $2.1 million that was raised from the capital campaign that AES had a significant hand in. So the Vogue may not have been able to revamp. It might have been a parking lot if the AES didn't get involved at that point either. So I do understand there's still food on the table. There's still scraps that we should have cleaned up.
The viability going forward is a concern also.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'd like to just throw something out that the AES has done, as a word to the council, is getting the harbor dredged. They championed that. If that harbor closes, the factories go away, fishing goes away, then where are we? So AES has done a lot for this community, so please remember that.
Anything else?
Real quick. Like I talked about in the meeting that we were at, I'm kind of like to have goals that I know are reachable and attainable and we can get there. How do you feel this executive director, what are you looking for in executive director? What do you see as his role?
You know, what we talked about at length is to get somebody who has everything and on what we can afford to pay is probably not gonna be where we're gonna be at. But we felt at this point in where we are right today as AES, we need somebody who's a good relationship builder. Somebody who has understanding of how nonprofit governmental agencies work, some access or knowledge about grants, but they're going to triage the work that you folks say you want done based on your strategic plans and what forth. And then they'll triage that to a consultant who is the planner or the grant writer or whatever else that I don't even know because it's not my area. But I think the biggest thing is that they need to come and have the interpersonal skills to build relationships and trust. I saw a lack of trust, Roger, actually, when we were in that room together, and that felt not comfortable to me because I'm a person who does what I say I'm gonna do, and to feel that you didn't trust me already, I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so I know that that's something historically, and I tried not to take that personally, because I don't think you don't trust Kelly Smith, because you don't know me. But you may not trust what's happened in the past, and that's too bad, because that's a lack of communication, a lack of building relationships that we need as communities in order to get the job done. And
I don't want to dwell on the past. I'm looking
Good.
I'm
Me
looking for
neither.
the future. And that's why I'm asking about the executive director, and I have questions about having 3 counties that he's going to service. In your opinion, is that possible?
You know, I think as the overhead, we talked a lot about them working with the area chambers, both Benzie, Cadillac, and Manistee. They already are in a consortium of such, and so they know each other. It would be good for all of them to hear some of the great things that Stacy's doing, we should be doing in Wexford. Some of the great things we've done in Wexford might be something that Stacy wants to do here, and the same up in Benzie. I don't know. That's a great question. We have enlisted the help of Beckert and Rader. John Icangelo is actually acting as our interim director right now, because we've let the consultants know that their time is done. We're working on a week, a month basis. So Roger, I hope so. I think that I could make that happen if I was that person, because I know what I do in this region as a educational leader. So I'm hopeful that we can find that person that can, because what if they know what's happening in the entire region, it's only good for all of us.
Let me speak to that real quick, though, Roger. I'm sorry, Councilman Zelinski, that was very disrespectful. I apologize.
That's all right.
Our idea is because the business of the business has been so misused and misrepresented, our true fiscal responsibility is to our funding agencies. And if Benzie puts in $20,000, we would bill and apply resources that got them up to their $20,000. And rightly so. And anything above that would be additional funding that they would have to secure for additional resources and additional support. The same thing we would do with Wexford and such, because we don't have that accountability measure right now. We're not very good at being, saying stop, no, we're not going to do any more services, because we don't have those pieces built yet. But my vision was one person, and that's why Kelly mentioned the collaboration effort, can't do it alone. So we would look to other resources to collaborate with and find, and like I mentioned, I just rattled off city, county, DDA, chamber of manufacturing, CVB, IDC, whoever we can collaborate with, and that might be MEDC, that may be MEDA, it might be state and governmental agencies, and find the right resources to support what we can for the financing that we've received from those bodies. So
just as a side note, I think it's important that council and AES, if council approves their funding, work on obtainable goals. I think sometimes we reach for the moon and it's impossible to get there.
I couldn't agree. When we say 100% occupancy in the park down there, we haven't seen a new business built down there in the last 20 years. How are we gonna get 100%?
I'd rather be working and spending my efforts on something that we know is attainable and we can get there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously with resources being from 3 contractors to 1 and then outsourcing, yeah, we'd have to find ways to reach the goal together, but that's gonna take some effort.
I think part of my concern when I saw the agenda item is you know, that we could take action to make a decision on funding AES. Without knowing what we're going to get or where we're going, I'm not gonna support funding something that I have no idea where the money's going. You know, I think that's part of the problem there. The last contract was, that had some explicit elements to it, and yes, it had a paragraph that it was dynamic and such as that, but I mean, at this point in time, it's like the request is being made for us to continue funding at some level, but for what service, then in what in particular, what can be measured, so we can see that there's some attainment and some value in this.
And I respect what your point is, but it's almost that chicken and the egg thing. You would establish what those goals are, just like, well, I think what has been addressed in the past. You've put some things in that 3-year plan, but every year, the staff sat down with FAD and came up with some of the things that they could be working on, and that's what Tamara presented to you. Now, if you want that in a different way, we can certainly do that, but only thing that we could give you tonight is what we've accomplished, what we're doing now, what we're working on for the city now, and what's gonna go away. I mean, those are givens. Those things are gonna happen. You definitely will not, through AES, maybe through some other entity, get grant funding, but AES will no longer be there to be the grant writer for the city. And they will not be there to help you develop the Olson property or whatever else might be on your agenda.
Yeah, the notion that we would have the same type of deliverables as we did 3 years ago, we're void of 2 contractors. It's Susan, an executive director or a vice chair and a chair, and then outsourcing consulting through Tamara. And it would be hard for us to build one of those unless we brought Tamara back in here to build that short and long-term action plan with deliverables. But that's what we would thought the executive director would do. Hiring that person expeditiously would help us set up that longer range plan. But it's hard to offer an executive director a position with knowing that at the end of December, you're probably going to be out of a job. So it's challenged. That's why we're kind of doing these parallel, because we can't build the plan without your involvement, and we can't get your involvement without an executive director to help drive that, because we don't have the skill set to build that strategic plan with you folks.
We've spent a lot of time trying to get to this point, and I do that, and I know Eric does, because of the love of the region, and what I believe, and I think Eric too, that AES has brought to the table. And we can talk about all the things they haven't done, but they've done a lot of good things too. So I guess that...
We have the chamber and we have the DDA doing economic development. Is there some collaboration between the 3 on projects?
It could be a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better.
And I can't answer totally. They can probably answer better than
It just seems like sometimes that somebody grabs a hold of something and then somebody else will grab a hold of the same thing, and it's all...
Or somebody will do something on their own that they could have done better with a collaboration of all 3 bodies.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And so part of it was maybe some personality conflicts, and part of it was just a lack of concerted and deliberate effort on behalf of some folks in each body. And so we just need to be better at those things. And I know, both the DDA and the Chamber have made a lot of attempts to reach out, and the DDA, or the AES has collaborated on a lot of things, but a lot of things also are still in those silos. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. That's why I think that collaboration between all of those bodies and many more are critical for this position to be successful.
So without the funding, the executive director will not happen.
No.
So there's no point person, there's nothing.
Well, not only that, but as Kelly mentioned, the grants that we've been administering for the region, we can't do those anymore. Some of the collaborations for Explore the Shores, Great Start. There were fiduciaries for other Launch Manistee, or fiduciaries for a lot of other agencies that they'll have to find another resource to do those. AES won't be able to be a part of that.
And they may go away.
And they may go away. I mean, I don't know. I met with Laura Heinz. I met with Laura Heinzman last week, and she articulated 5 or 6 things that she would be very concerned with if AES no longer existed. And those are some that I just mentioned.
I have to bring me up to speed a little bit. Has the county made up their mind what they're going to do, or?
No.
I think in the 19th. So, any other questions?
Yeah, you've been on the hot seat long enough.
I really appreciate your time.
Actually, it's good feedback and good collaboration. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion that council take action to make a decision on the AES funding for the next year.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Goodspeed and a second by Councilmember Whitliff. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Yes, I don't feel like I can make a decision on this without knowing what direction the county's going to. I really don't.
And I think
we need to work with them, not independently. We need to know what their decision's gonna be.
Well, I think they're waiting on our decision to see what they're gonna do.
Well-
So you make the decision, no ask dad, no ask mom, go ask dad, I don't care, we have to make a decision.
It's my understanding if the county and the city does, if I heard this right, if the county and the city stop their funding, then AES goes away. Does that mean if the county stops the funding and the city doesn't, does AES go away?
Depends on what the funding levels are.
I'm taking a leap of faith. What is
I-
it, $23,000 for the until next budget from what we paid, or what? I guess I'm asking you, Thad.
I thought it was 45 to 46,000.
Yeah, the budget
But we paid.
covered funding through the end of December, which was the end of the contract period, as opposed to extending to the next July, the next 30th of June.
So we're
for a
talking roughly
contract that didn't
$23,000.
exist.
We were projecting, I guess, for lack of better terms, a surplus that we were gonna hold on to if council decided to continue funding for AES that would get us through until our next fiscal year came about.
Well, that money's sitting.
It's there, yes.
Okay.
I think my concerns are, is I'd like to see the framework of a contract, like we had before. I'm finding it difficult to support funding something without some set objectives, some measurables, doing something different than we've done in the past. DDA's hired Mr. Lepinen to help with economic development. As Mayor Pro Tem has pointed out, we've got the chamber. We've got all these resources working together, sometimes overlapping. Something we need to do. We've had a joint meeting with county representatives and had a preliminary discussion. I don't see why we can't continue to do that and come to a common consensus. And then again, the question asked, if the county still funds them and the city doesn't, does that change the structure? Does that change their viability? A lot of unanswered questions.
Could I ask a question? Mr. Downs is here. I don't know if you'd like to elaborate at all? If it's allowed?
We only have 3 members here, so I'll indulge my thoughts quickly, and that is you could make an approval pending approval of the county, such as we do with city council from time to time on different things that come up. I don't know where we're gonna go with this, to be honest with you. We will have a presentation on the 19th, just as you've had tonight, and try to make a decision at that time. I guess the one question that listen to the dialogue of the city thing that makes me think about in regard to grants and administering grants that have been put out there that are already in play at the moment. I heard that at Winnetka Township when I was at that meeting this morning. And I know the city probably has a lot more grants at play than most of the folks that, you know, AES is acquiring grants, assisted in acquiring grants for. So that's something else you need to think about. Who's gonna administer the grants and at what cost? So, you gotta figure out what's your best value.
You know, when I worked for 5CAP for 4+ years, and we got grants from the state and from the federal government, and from Michigan Public Works Commission. There were fees that went to the agency for administering those grants. It wasn't like people were doing it free gratis or without some expense. And I had to record hours that I worked in different programs each week to justify those resources. So are you saying that, is AES saying that they administer the grants without fees from the grants? I mean, you don't get anything for grant administration at all?
Some of them don't allow that.
Some don't allow fee administration, so. And some of them, if they don't allow that, townships and villages are willing to pay a percentage to support that, so, but not all.
Can I ask what the chamber thinks? Are they're willing to work more collaborative, or have they in the past? I mean, what if Stacy, is that something that I can ask Mayor Smith?
Actually, the chamber has sent a letter to the county and the city wanting to sit down with both entities. And we do have a presentation for a proposal ready to go as well.
For the county?
For the county and the city. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I submitted a letter to Thad on Friday, as well as Jeff Dunce on Friday on behalf of the chamber.
Because I would really like to see what, you know, the county, the resources we have right now and how well they would work or won't work with AES, and if it would help the community or not, and if it's worth the money.
Okay, thank you.
The mayor brought up a point on the contract. The contract's already in place, isn't it, for?
Balance of the year.
Okay.
It expires
All right.
31st of December.
All right.
But, so I'm a little confused. So we have the 23,000 set aside, but I could have sworn that they were asking for the 46,000. What was that number
We
for?
don't actually have 23,000 set aside because we added $6,000 to the youth center and took it from that.
It's approximately that amount of money. The intent of that budget and the direction of council was to allocate enough money to fulfill our contract obligations through the end of the year, and anything left over would be held in abeyance depending on what direction council went with AES in the future.
So if we do approve and extend, that we probably won't be able to fund all of what you were asking for, correct?
There is fund balance that council could use, and obviously, as staff goes through the budget, projects come in under, we don't do projects, so it's always a moving target how much money we would have. So I'm confident that if council wanted to continue funding after the first of the year, that staff would be able to make recommendations on how that money would be used, and whether it's going to be fund balance or from the existing budget dollars.
'Cause I just would like to bring up the point that, okay, we do fund it, but we don't have enough of the funding that they ask to run. What will happen then? I mean, if they can't get the requested amount, or for some reason it won't work out, what
Well,
will? And I think that's more for AES than, it's.
I'm confident that if council wants to continue funding AES after the first of the year on a similar amount of money that you have in the years past, that would be available.
Any further questions or discussion?
I'm just curious of what the chamber has. Now, the chamber has a proposal.
Yeah, again, I received that Friday when I was out of the office all day, and that's gonna be going out to council tomorrow. And as I said in our weekly update, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, that the chamber had notified me that they were interested in extending some kind of a proposal. And basically, the letter was just informing that, solidifying that and asking for a meeting with council to discuss their thoughts on economic development.
I have a really hard time when people say that we're not gonna be able to operate unless they have this much money, and I'm wondering, okay, there's gotta be a point between the first dollar and the $137,000. So here's my thoughts on funding for it. Could AES stay in business if between the county and the city reduce their allocation to them by $57,000? That would make them even to what they're getting from Wexford and Benzie.
I think part of the issue here is in making a decision on whether we want to fund them next year. I mean, the amount being funded in the terms of the contract have yet to be decided. Now, Chamber's making a proposal. I think in fairness, you would want to consider, what the options are, what the viability is.
Well, that's why I'm throwing an option out. So, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm throwing an option out to think about.
Is there a way we can make a special session?
Well,
At the
a special meeting can be called to discuss it.
So say after the county meeting and after we see all the proposals and presentations, that we can make our final decision? Because I think if we make a decision tonight and there's something in the back burner saying, well, wait, this, I want to see everything up front first.
There's just a lot of ifs right now. If this or if that.
Any further comments?
So, do I have to change my motion? Is that what you're asking me to do? Change my motion to say, to wait for the decision of the county?
If you agree on that, you don't have to do that, but if you don't, I will.
Well,
You can't.
you can't, I got the motion, that's what I'm asking. If you want me to change the motion, I will.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with this, but I think we need to keep going this way and not this way.
Right.
So, I will change my motion to approve funding of the AES after decisions of the county are made and other entities have been discussed. So, if that's possible. I don't want to table it.
Well,
George, you got an input for me?
I'm not sure. Were you saying your motion would be the approval for the city's funding would be contingent upon county funding?
Well, that's kind of where I'm going, because that seems to be the issue with other council members. And to what funding, we've never mentioned a true funding amount, except for you know?
Right
So
now,
do I need to just pull a motion
well,
and we
right now,
table it?
right now,
What-
to be honest, right now, the motion is to make a decision. It didn't include anything about what your decision was gonna be anyways. But, if you wanted to withdraw your motion and.
Can always be reconsidered again.
Consider, I don't know what the timeline is as to why it was on this council meeting.
That was a request that they made to get it on at the earliest convenience.
Can we request to have the meeting be a certain date, before a certain date, so that it's not a continuous?
If you're asking, can we specify a meeting to make the final decision?
Yeah.
We can do that.
But
What's 5th and the 12th? They have a 7 meeting, so it could be on the 19th, so Tuesday 19th, put back on the agenda, right?
I believe the county meets on, I thought they said they met on the 19th.
They meet on the 19th.
You meet on the 19th.
Yeah. We could have it the first meeting in October.
Because I also want to hear what the chamber has to say.
Or we can call a special meeting for the week after the 19th. And I think, that Tuesday would be the 26th, I believe.
It would have to be.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the options. If you're wanting to wait to.
I don't think a week's gonna make a difference.
Okay, if you're wanting to to evaluate the county's position on this, and if you have an interest in hearing what the chamber might offer, we could conceivably have a special meeting on the 26th for council to consider everything.
No, let's do it Monday, or the first Tuesday in October.
Okay.
I'd like to rescind my motion.
So do you need a second on the rescind?
I'm satisfied, since the motion really didn't ask to take any action, it was a motion to make a decision. I'm satisfied that just indicating, your rescission, there was really no action that was being requested anyway with the motion, so I think you're fine with that without any.
Okay.
So there's nothing like a final motion to request the meeting? You just request it, correct?
Yeah, I think the city manager indicated that he was gonna put it on the agenda.
Yes.
First week of October.
For the first meeting in October.
Okay. Thank you. Item C, consideration of ordinance 17-10, amending chapter 289, Parks Commission. Manistee Park Commission has requested that chapter 289 Park Commission be amended by replacing section 289.02A and modifying the qualifications for non-residents of the city to serve as a member of the Parks Commission. The ordinance under consideration would increase the number of non-resident members to 3. This ordinance has been reviewed by the Council Ordinance Committee. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. If this ordinance is introduced this evening, it could be adopted at the next regular meeting. At this time, council could take action to introduce ordinance 17-10, amending chapter 289 Parks Commission, section 289.02.
I'll make the motion.
Also,
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, a second by Councilmember Cooper. Is there any discussion?
I currently sit on the Parks Commission, and right now, we haven't been able to have a meeting for the last 2 months because we don't have enough members. So if we do approve this, we could finally have a meeting if we can get more people to.
I like the way this has been written and was presented to the ordinance committee. I understand their dilemma in not being able to fill the seats on the committee. And I like them expanding to parents of school-age children in any school in the city of Manistee. I think that'll bring a little bit of variety, so I was happy to see that happen.
Any further discussion? Will you please take roll?
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitman?
Yes.
Councilmember Bixby?
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton?
Yes.
Thank you. Consideration of applications to boards and commissions. City clerk has taken action to advertise vacancies on the boards of review, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Downtown Development Authority, Parks Commission, PEG Commission, and the zoning boards of appeal. All appointments by the mayor are subject to council's approval unless otherwise specified by statute or ordinance. Nominations for council appointments do not require a second. After a member of council nominates an individual for appointment, council shall vote on that nomination. A majority vote in favor of placement of the nominee is required for appointment. The following applications have been received. Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, 3 vacancies, 1 term ending 6/30/18 and 2 terms ending 6/30/20. Applicants must be city residents or persons with interest in property in the city. This is a mayoral appointment. Susan Myers, 212 Second Avenue, has applied, but she also indicated on her application that she is a seasonal resident and she's only in the area from May through August. So I'm going to decline to make that appointment. Downtown Development Authority, 1 vacancy, term ending 6/30/21. Applicants must have an interest in property in the downtown district. This is a mayoral appointment. We have 2 outstanding candidates for this position. Karen Goodman, 1925 12th Street, and Cherry Wild, 7700 Mill Arch Road in Onekama. I nominate Karen Goodman, 1925 12th Street.
I'll make a motion to support the mayor's appointment of Karen Goodman at 1925 12th Street.
Please take roll.
Then you
Need a second? I have a motion by Councilmember Goodspeed, second by Councilmember Whitliff. Any discussion? Please take roll.
Councilmember Beaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac?
Yes.
Notices, communications, and announcements. Report from the Tree Commission. A regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency, organization, or department. At this time, Mr. Pat Segala will report on the activities of the Tree Commission and respond to any questions the council may have regarding their activities.
Pat, you changed.
Good evening, Your Honor. It's actually Pat Segala is the chairperson of the Tree Commission. She delegated this presentation to Pat Williams, who was one of the founding members of the Tree Commission, and she had some medical issues today, and so she asked if I would just give you some quick highlights. The Tree Commission is 25 years old. In 1991, the concept was first discussed locally, and a couple volunteer members went together, researched it, and actually drafted the first bylaws, and then formed a 9-member commission. In 1994, members of the Tree Commission went out throughout the city, cataloged all the trees that are within the boulevards, that's within the right-of-ways. They did an inventory based on location, species of the tree, approximate age of the tree, and the condition or health of the tree, and created a database at that point. In 1997, the Tree Commission amended the original ordinance so that it included species of trees that were recommended to be planted back in the right-of-ways once trees were gone or residents desired those, and those guidelines have been followed ever since. In 1999, the city was first named a Tree City USA. Some of the funding levels have changed over the years, and so we are not currently a Tree City USA, but I've met with a tree consultant, and we will be making an application this winter, and we believe that we'll be back with that status. Over the 25 years that the Tree Commission has been in existence, there's been close to 1,100 trees that have been planted through the program. Our next tree planting program will likely be in the spring of 2018. So we're preparing the ads and the information to go out to residents where they can purchase at a very fair price a tree to be planted out in the boulevard. It also comes with a watering bag. So in the next month or so, people can keep an eye out for that. We'd like to advertise at this point, at this time of the year, because the landscapers recommend that the planting happen in the spring, and it gives the tree the best opportunity to grow. But when we are able to get all those numbers together now, we can also bid out the planting of those, and then the selected contractor has the time to order and have the nurseries prepared. The tree commission meets a couple times a year at a minimum, but meets as required and as requested. We probably process 40 to 60 different requests from residents each year to trim trees or have trees removed. If they're in an emergent situation, we'll just take that upon ourselves and the Public Works will remove that tree. But the process that we go through is, if you have a tree out in front of your house or down the block that you're concerned about, we have a form that gets filled out. Those are available on the website that are at City Hall, and you can pick them up at the Public Works office. Once that's filled out, we compile them, we take them to the tree commission. They typically have a subcommittee that'll go out and actually look at each tree and then make recommendations on what kind of care and maintenance moving forward. And then the Public Works does most of the forestry work in the very late portions of the year. So usually after the leaves are down, and we've collected all of those in November, so December, January, depending on snowfall, and then we get back on it in the spring. And we typically take down about 40 or 50 trees a year. So planting those trees back is important. The Tree Commission also organizes the Children's Chalk Art event that's part of the Forest Festival each year, and tries to bring bring the kids together, give them a little bit of education opportunity. And those are the highlights that I had. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't know if it's part of this, but I think it is. Right behind be Stacy's Flowers on First and McKee.
Okay.
Or be McKee behind Stacy's Flowers. We were out walking with my dog and my neighbor, or the owner come out and said, look at this tree. It was heaving, was laying against the power lines. They came and cut it to the power lines, but the tree is now just a 12-foot stump.
Yeah,
When is that slated to be pulled?
Okay,
You know?
that's a great question. The
I know
last
because the sidewalk heaving, it was kind of, so, sorry.
The last couple of years, we've established a very good relationship with contacts with Consumers Energy and their contracted tree removal crews. So when we get trees that are within the power lines and are dangerous, or they're very high and too high for our equipment, we've got a kind of a collaborative agreement where they will top them and bring them down to a safe level, and then our crews will go in and remove them. So I could check on that specifically, but generally.
Yeah, you guys did. You guys came in the next day because it was a dangerous situation.
Right.
But there's still a 12-foot tree sitting there with no branches.
Okay.
That if you could maybe consider putting that on because it still is heaving and it's still pulling the sidewalk up.
Sure.
Thank you.
Jeff, there's a tree, when I walk my dog, on Concord and 9th on the northwest corner, that's been dead for a few years, and it's large. It's a large maple probably. But of course there's power lines. Another windstorm, one could take out the power lines. And so.
Anytime you see stuff like that, either pass it on to me, call City or Kathy down at the City Garage, or if you pass it on to Thad, and we'll certainly get those checked out and take care of them.
You can take a look at it, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Concerns and comments. Citizen comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Are there any citizens that would like to make comment at this time? If not, we'll move on to officials and staff. City manager,
Nothing at this time.
city attorney,
Nothing, Your Honor.
city clerk. Public safety director.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Public works director.
Nothing, Your Honor.
City finance, officer here. City engineer.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Couple things. First is like to know where we are with the deer call study. Staff was gonna do some work on that, I believe. Or we're gonna get together and talk about it.
Drawing a blank, sorry.
Okay.
And the other is the current blight ordinance on cars. The police do a good job of informing the residents that they should move or relicense the cars. Sometimes, and I've heard from a couple people, the people take the car away, unlicensed car, bring it back 30 days later, so we have to start the process over. Is there anything we can do on an ordinance to put some teeth into it? So what I'd personally I'd like to see is once the police inform the resident that the car needs to be licensed or needs to be towed away, that first notification is law. I mean, they can't take it away and bring it back.
I'd have to consider that and maybe talk with the public safety director and see if we could come up with something, but I'll do that. I'll discuss that with him.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Just a couple things. I just wanted to see where we were at with Century Terrace. I guess there's some sinkhole that Spicer was gonna look into. Have you addressed that yet?
Yes, it's for the Housing Commission, of course, not a city project, but we had Swiderski Brothers dig up around that area because they had seen some settling, and so there's concerns that might be a void underneath the pavement, and so we had Swiderski dig that up to make sure there wasn't a hole or a sinkhole there. They'd have concerns. We didn't really find anything specific, and so they filled it back in with gravel. We're gonna work with the Housing Commission on a plan for the front entrance to address their kind of bigger concern, which is with stormwater in that area. So we got we looked at it temporarily to see what was going on, put a temporary fix on it, and we're working on right now getting a plan together that we can present to the Housing Commission on how that area could be reworked for an entrance drive, reshaped so stormwater can go different directions and not in their front door. So we're in the midst of getting a proposal to the Housing Commission to do that plan. So we'll be working on that probably in this next couple weeks to a month to get that pulled together and give them some concepts.
Okay.
So.
And then I just want to commend the police department that I heard that they're doing some autism training. So I appreciate that from an autistic mother, so I have a son. And then just to remind everybody, be careful of the kids. It was the first day of school, so with the buses that are out now.
I continue to have citizens comment about our traffic signal and the walk, don't walk at River Street in Maple, and how confusing it is, and state that people just simply ignore it and walk when they don't see traffic. I'm not sure that what we've done has helped the situation.
Yeah, Jeff and Sean and I discussed this topic after our staff this morning about the pros and cons. There is a switch that we can trip and it puts it back to what it was. And I have some concerns about, is that the right signal we want to send to the community, that we only are worried worried about increased pedestrian safety during the summer months, and then after that, we don't care. So anyhow, I asked them to evaluate that and give me some recommendations and options that we would want to pursue going forward. So we have that concern. We had a good talk about the fact that people are impatient. They don't wait for it to say walk. They just continue walking. And so, we're not of the opinion we did the right thing. It's not working out as intended. So I've asked them to give me some options on how we can address that moving forward.
Okay, thank you. With that, motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Second.
That was the best motion anybody made all day.
3 in the morning?
It was fun.
Yes, sir.
Well, glad they got that delayed for a while, you know.